Hello everyone, David here, MixBus TV. Hope you guys are having a great day. Here we are with another full-length, start-to-finish mixing course. This time around is heavy rock. We're gonna break down the mix for an awesome sounding song titled Locomotive in the style of Alter Bridge, Killswitch Engage, Blackstone Cherry, and so on. Great musicians, awesome raw performances, all real instruments. In this course, you're gonna learn how to mix huge, powerful sounding drums while shaking bass, big and wide electric guitars, and of course, vocals. We're gonna see all the settings for the plugins, analog gear, and of course, we're gonna go through all the moves and the thought process and the why of each single move. Parts of this course are gonna be available on YouTube for everybody for free, but if you want the full course, you can buy it right now at this email or click the join button, become a MixBus TV member, and enjoy the courses. Without further ado, let's get to it. All right, first thing first, let's hear the final mix. So this is the mix, the final mix, not the mastered, although I already mastered the track. You can see is this one next to it, and this is actually our mix. And you can see one thing right away. We start the lesson. We have a great crest factor and at the same time a really punchy drums, kick and snare, hit hard. But as you can see, we don't see those tall spikes that are so very common in certain mixes. And we are going to see how to achieve that and many other things in this course. This is the master. We are not going to see the mastering of this song. Maybe we will do that in another course, but just for reference, this is how the master sounds. Okay, so we maintain the punch, we maintain the bigness of the guitars, all that low end. We sacrifice little to nothing to achieve a final master that I think hits around -5 LUFS. And that, of course, is because we have a balanced mix. We have a mix that sounds like a record already. And on top of that, has a great crest factor, so we don't have push limiters and clippers at the mastering stage too much. But again, we're gonna maybe see the mastering in another course. Actually, let me know in the comments down below if you want me to do a separate course for the mastering of this song. Like I said in the intro, we have all real instruments here. So real drums, real guitar, real bass, and all the vocals for a total of around 80 tracks. So this is actually not a high track count mix, but everything was recorded very well. Performances were great. That doesn't mean that I didn't have a couple of issues that I had to solve here and there, because when you record real instruments, that's normal and it happens. So before we start, I have on this project heat. In Pro Tools, drive at the first click counterclockwise, which means we're using the transformer saturation, but without tone. So I'm not making the whole thing darker or brighter. And as you can see from the top row here in the mixer, everything is pre-processing. So I did gain staging, turned on heat, and then that type of saturation will not be affected by the processing that I'm doing in insert, or for example, the parallel tracks that I added. We start with the drum, we start with the kick. I had 4 kicks for this drum. The first one is kick in. We have a kick out. We have 1 kick sample. And we have another kick sample. All 4 together sound like this. Okay, we don't have any processing whatsoever right now. Not on the 2 bus, not on the drum bus, not on the individual channels. But if you take a look at the top 2 tracks, I had to solve a problem before even starting this mix. These 2 tracks at the top were grayed out because I had to print something. So if we take a look, you see at the 2 kicks, let me change color. Let's make them yellow so you can see and differentiates from the ones below that, which are the ones that I used in the mix. If you take a look, kick in, this one, and kick out were slightly out of phase. And this is how they sounded together. They didn't sound that bad. They were not completely out of phase, but there is definitely this hollow low end, and that's what I noticed. And then I took a look at the waveform and I noticed they were a little bit out. So what I did is I used in phase to put these 2 in phase. I captured them and then analyzed them. And then as you can see, I moved the top 1.35 milliseconds. Now, these numbers work for this session. Of course, they will not work for anything else. Once I did that, I gated both of them with Smart Gate. And I also EQ'd this one out a little bit. And I always say, don't EQ individually the elements, right? If you have like a multi-mic elements kick in and kick out, because you're going to mess the phase correlation between the 2 microphones that you placed. But in this case, the microphones were not in phase to begin with. So I EQ'd and I adjusted the phase so that now they are in phase and they sound good together. And because this was a pre-mix process, I had to do and put those 2 kicks back in phase. I simply printed it and I just got rid of these 2 tracks. Let's start with this kick drum. I have only console 1 for this, and I simply have the drive because I've already EQ'd that one with Fab Filter Pro Q3. Barely noticeable. Then we have the same for kick out. Then we have the 3rd sample kick, same thing, just the drive. And the 4th sample kick, same thing, just drive. So again, do not mess with equalization on individual elements that are going to be forming one single instrument. In this case, we have 4 kick tracks, but they are our kick drum, so 1. So just drive to give a little bit of color and a little bit of attitude. And all the processing is here in the kick sum. As you see, all the kicks go to this kick sum aux track. And here is the bulk of the processing. Let's start with console 1. And here we have a little bit of EQ, more saturation and compression. Let's bypass these. Okay, a little bit of drive gives us a little more bite, and the low cut at 27 attenuate the really sub range, because this is rock and roll. We don't have 808s, although we have one at some point. We don't need below 27 for this kick drum. But remember, HPF don't annihilate the energy below the corner frequency. So 27 is not that there's nothing below 27, is an attenuation. SSL has a slope of 18 dB per octave. Then we have EQ. All right, a little bit of top end, actually quite a bit of top end, because this kick drum needs to cut through the guitars. That's our first thing, and it needs to be heard in small speakers. Okay, so a little cut at 250 and a lot of boost at 8K, but you can see also a cut at 5K. So that there's this push-pull. I'm cutting with the bell and I'm boosting with a shelf, because that 5K frequency is where the guitars and the vocals have a lot of energy. Also, the overheads, so we don't want too much of that. After console 1, we have the capitator to make this kick drum rock and roll. Just a little bit of aggression, just a little bit of attitude. We start with very good sounds to begin with, so we don't have to mangle this kick drum. It sounds good already. And then one of my favorite plugins, this is like a really not so secret weapon, but it's great. It's just great. And I really love the combo, the bark of dog. This is a resonant filter, so it's a resonant HPF. And I added this one later on in the mix. Again, we are not going through the processing in chronological order how I mixed it. We're just going for the sake of the chorus from top to bottom. So I added this one when the bass was in, when the two-bus processing was in, when the guitars were in, to actually find the sweet spot for the kick drum. I was searching for the lowest usable octave on the kick drum, which happens to be a 47 hertz, and I boosted, so we have a resonance filter around 2.4. This does two things: cleans up the really sub range, which I gave to the bass, we'll see that later, and also it makes the kick drum appear bigger, and at the same time gives us headroom both for levels and for frequency range. Right, the money range, this around 50 hertz is where the kick drum needs to have the power and the punch. And it also kind of counterbalance a little bit the top end, so we don't want the kick drum to sound thin. And sometimes you might have a lot of low end, but if you have too much top end, it will still sound thin. Because we are already thinking about crest factor and containing nominal level, the next one is Master X HD. And the only thing that I'm using this for is this tiny bit of limiting, probably half a dB here and there, just to contain not really the nominal level, but that really big low end that we have. To contain the nominal level, I'm using Breakable HD. Just tapping it just a little bit, okay? But we are going to see that this one is gonna increase a little bit the amount of clipping that I'm doing when I'm adding the kick X. So as you can see, I'm not sending all 4 channels to the kick X, which is my parallel kick, okay? But I'm only sending the 2 samples. Here we have console 1 with a lot of drive. So let me try to solo, can hear just the parallel. Right, that's our drive, just our drive. And then more drive, actually full-blown distortion with Audiority Pyros. You know, it's one of my favorite distortion plugins. I want a really nasty, big, and powerful kick. And as you can see, I'm injecting this one, this parallel kick, back into kick sum. So all the single tracks plus the parallel, they all go to kick sum and they get processed with the capitator, bark of dog, and so on. So if we put them back in, we mute the parallel. It's not that noticeable. Again, we just want more energy when everything is in, the guitars and the bass and the vocals. What you don't want is to end up with a kick drum that is just a little tiny spike with no body, no energy, because that's going to be a problem. That's what's going to force you to turn on the fader of the kick drum and the snare and give you those tall spikes, and you still don't have power, okay? Very common on metal and rock mixes. Then we have the snares. Now, When I mix rock like this, I want to say signature thing in my mixes is the snare sound. I never do two snares that sound the same. If you are on YouTube and the video stops here, I hope you liked it. And if you did, please don't forget to leave a like, support the channel, use the super thanks, and subscribe. If you want to buy the full course, you can write to this email or join the channel as a member and enjoy all the courses. Thank you for watching. Subscribe if you haven't already. Stay safe. See you next time.